Duke's has twang. Does your mayo have it? Do you ask for it by name when you go out to eat? Do you display your devotion to it for all the world to see? Can it elevate your lime cilantro aioli to a level that's borderline holy? If not, you're probably using the wrong mayo. That's because only Duke's mayo has twang. It's that little southern something that elevates food from good to downright ridiculous. Get Duke's. It's got twang.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome in to the Gramlich and McLean podcast, episode 239, as we are previewing the ACC Championship game between Clemson and North Carolina. We have so much to talk about here, Mac. By the way, our podcast is presented by Duke's Mayo. We love them. Shout out to Duke's Mayo. Mac's wearing his Duke shirt today. I'm on the road, so I didn't bring any of my Duke swag, but I have this sweater that is low-key a blanket, and it is feeling great. Mac, how are you, my friend?
I am just living the dream, KG. It's December. I have my Christmas tree up. I have Christmas music blasting. Do you? Okay, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Oh, yeah.
When did you put it up? The day after Thanksgiving? Before Thanksgiving?
Well, we were traveling back. So the Sunday after Thanksgiving is when it went up. And getting all my stuff going. But Nick's job is the outside. So he claims, because I'm gone this week for work, he claims when I return, our house will look like a winter wonderland on the outside. We shall see.
We will need a live update on Monday of what the house looks like. I cannot wait to do it. Do you guys go pretty hard on the outdoor activities?
Well, this is our first time having, we used to be in a townhouse, so it wasn't as much.
Right.
But this time we have a house, and Nick is so pumped. Like, he said he went crazy on Amazon ordering lights and everything. So he
What
gets
was
it
the
from
budget?
his
What was
dad.
the Christmas light budget?
You know, I'm not familiar with that figure.
Like $5,000. $5,000.
Yeah, no, because I still want some nice presents. So I think we went with some solid lights here. We've got some bushes we need to cover, that kind of thing. Nick had a vision, so I'm going to let him try to execute his vision. I handle the inside. I wonder if other couples are like this. I handle the inside because I have a very particular way I want the inside to look, you know?
Sure.
And then the outside is his domain. He can do what he wants.
You know, that's actually interesting because I would think you would be more particular about the outside, which is what everybody in the world sees. Nobody sees the inside of your house.
All I care is what I see.
Interesting.
And
that's
the vibe I want.
That's fascinating. Kaki is a more of both and will tell me what she wants and where she wants it.
I figured that.
Gal.
Well, yeah, I am a little worried about Nick going a little too white trash, so we'll see how that goes. There was talk of an inflatable, and I was like, no.
Not an inflatable.
Not yet.
I have a dear friend that had multiple inflatables, I think for Halloween, so I can only imagine what Christmas is going to be like. Man.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Gotta love that. One thing that I love, KG, is my friends over at Duke's Mayo. And I have to tell you about this because last night, here's the deal. I had a hankering, if you will, for some wings. So I'm going to the store, Whole Foods, my store of choice here in Columbia, South Carolina. And if you are familiar with Whole Foods, their setup is awesome. Like, you walk in, you've got all this meat. You got fish, you've got crab, you've got all this stuff, and then you've got the red meat, which is right beside the chicken. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, dang, that looks so freaking good. I'm going to make some hamburgers too. So we did hamburgers and wings. And you're asking, man, where are you going with this? Are you just telling us some basic Coach Sweeney and Kelly mustard story? Absolutely not. Here's the deal. Duke's has these little things called Southern sauces. They're so good. There's a million of them. I'll tell you about all of them in a second. Tennessee whiskey is my absolute favorite for burgers. So I made this Tennessee whiskey cheeseburger mix where you infuse it, you mash it all together, you put it on the grill. It's the best tasting thing you could ever imagine. So that's that. And then for the chicken wings, you do the Alabama white sauce as your dipping. KG, let me just tell you, if you haven't tried it, you've got to try it. The Southern sauces for me are the way to go. They're so good. You see the video, you see the footage there of the chicken wings. It's unbelievable. And there's more than that. They've got the Carolina vinegar barbecue, if you like that. I'm not a big vinegar guy. The sweet heat from Georgia. is really, really good. Hickory Moonshine's a great one. Carolina Gold, I think, is a fan favorite. Every time we post about Dukes,
that's solid.
Everybody's talking about the Carolina Gold. And then the Mississippi Comeback. I have not tried that one yet. I've got it. Actually, it's right here. This is the Mississippi Comeback. So excited to try that one. But those little Southern something that's in there, that twang, KG, I tell you what, it makes anything a little bit better. And I love it.
Mac, yum. That sounds amazing. And you guys have to go over to dukesmayo.com and you can check out all the sauces that Mac has just discussed, but also enter the Y'all Star Sweepstakes. There's still 2 weeks left to enter, so you've got time, and potentially win the grand prize. 4 pregame field passes to the Dukes Mayo Bowl. An ACC team will be there, so go ahead and enter now to see if it's your team. 4 on-field tickets. You get to sit in the Dukes Mayo Twang throne. What could be better? Stadium tour. That's really cool at Bank of America. Travel voucher. $250 Visa gift card, and swag. So go enter today. You got 2 weeks to do it, but go do it now at dukesmayo.com. Mac, one day you and I will finally get to sit in the Dukes Mayo Twang throne.
Remember that one time we were supposed to, and then COVID just ruined everything?
Yeah.
So whoever, shout out to the Twang throne sitters. Shout out to them.
Always. Okay, Mac, it is time to dive into this matchup. The number 9 Clemson Tigers, 10-2 overall, 8-0 in the Atlantic Coast Conference, facing off against number 23 North Carolina, 9-3 overall, 6-2 in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Clemson is 7.5-point favorite. The total's at 63.5, which is pretty high, Mac. Let's just start big picture here. We kind of mentioned the spread on the Dabo Swinney episode. If you didn't see the Dabo episode, as Mac lives in Columbia and there's another siren, which is hilarious because this happens to him all the time. I don't know what Mac has done, but the police are after him.
I don't even try to mute it anymore. Oh, here comes another one. Hold on, there's 2. He's honking the horn. I don't even try to mute it anymore. I just fully embrace that I'm in a dangerous place. I live in a dangerous place.
You live on the edge. Mac,
and it's even more dangerous. It's even more dangerous.
I was doing TV last night in Bristol for the ACC Big Ten Challenge, and I was working with Drew Carter, and Drew listens to our pod, and he was like, Kelly, I laugh every time I hear one of those sirens go by Mac's house.
Here we are, Drew. Shout out Drew Carter.
That's what you're known for, Mac. But
good.
Overall, big picture, we both think the spread sounds pretty good here. I know you want color rush jerseys. The last time these two played in the ACC title game, Mac played in, it was 2015. It was a really high-scoring game. I'm not sure it'll be that high-scoring, but just give us your initial thoughts on this matchup, Mac.
Yeah, well, I think that that's a pretty cool accomplishment that I didn't learn until this year. You know, Brian Ives does a great job. He sends us all these notes and just so much information, and so he does a really great job with sending that. And in there was flashback to 2015, highest scoring ACC championship ever. I did not know
realize that. Yeah.
There's another cop car going by. His sirens aren't on, so that's good. So with that being said, that was pretty cool. So I've been in the highest scoring national championship ever. Took a L. That's very sad. Coach Dabo Swinney brought it up on Wednesday. And now the highest scoring ACC championship, which I was going to get one of my rings. I forgot it. It's back in the back. I was going to show y'all.
See, and it's good that you play offense because if you were a defensive player, you would not want to say those stats.
Dang. You're like, man, this is not good. This is not good. So that 2015 team was pretty good. We had a lot of explosion on there. But when I'm excited for this game, KG. You know, it was funny. Saturday, I was down in the dumps. I was kind of beating myself up. I'm like, this stinks. We've got 2 teams who are like super hot. It's all my fault. 2 teams that are super hot that have just totally blown up this championship. But that's not how I feel at all. This is going to be an awesome game. This is going to be a really fun matchup. North Carolina is going to bring it. They're going to be absolutely packed. Cannot wait to see those fans. And same thing with Clemson. They missed out last year, so they had a break, you know, kind of from the postseason going to the Cheez-It Bowl. Did you go to the Cheez-It Bowl, KG?
No, but I ate a lot of Cheez-Its.
That's right. You and Prince Chedward are BFFs. I forgot.
I do love Prince Chedward.
So I think Clemson's going to show up as well. I'm expecting 60+ thousand at this game. It holds, I think, 70. Maybe we'll get close to selling that thing out. But that's what I'm excited to see. It is just jam-packed the way the championship should be. Everybody there going nuts. The environment should be really cool. And it's fascinating that this is the last ever divisional championship, you know, with Atlantic, with the Coastal. So it's kind of cool for both of these teams to kind of be the last ones to kind of take the trophy and go home and never bring it back type of deal. So I'm excited for that, and then excited for the future with getting rid of that. What are your thoughts on that? I know we've spoken about this before, but Are you pro no divisions? You want the best teams?
Oh, yeah, 1,000%, especially because the ACC's divisions aren't geographic. I mean, it's not like you have a real rhyme or reason why these divisions exist. Yeah. You've got Boston College and Clemson in the same division. It doesn't make any sense. So, yes, I'm glad. But, Mac, when you look at the overall records, I believe it would still be Clemson, North Carolina, because Florida State has lost 3 ACC games. Yeah, so
that's right.
It would still be Clemson, UNC. It's kind of fitting. The final year of the divisions, it actually works out for the best with the two teams, even though UNC, of course, didn't have to play FSU or Clemson because of the divisions and how they worked. So there's also that.
Let me throw this at you. I know it's a conference championship. Would you rather see, instead of the best conference record, because, that's not equal who you play. Some teams play harder teams, some don't. Would you rather the two highest ranked, if you will, ACC teams? Then it would be Clemson, Florida State.
That's interesting. I'm going to say no because I don't trust the committee. And
that's what I was going to say. It's too much power just to. Who do we want to see? Who do we want to see?
They already have too much power, and they're constantly ranking teams to help justify who they have at the top. So I get it that it's going to be an unequal schedule certain years, but I think there will be less of that when we don't have divisions, because then you're going to rotate and play certain teams every couple of years. So I still think it should come down to ACC play and your record. And then if you're tied, go to a tiebreaker, whatever, just because I don't trust that stinking committee, Mac.
I don't either. I just wanted to throw that out there, see what you thought.
It's a good question. But let's dive into this game, and let's start with UNC's offense. I mean, they've been the talk of the town. Drake May, ACC Player of the Year, as we all thought. However, when you look at the last couple of games, the Georgia Tech game and the NC State game, this offense has struggled. And I want to pull this quote from Mac Brown, where he said, over the last 2 games, this is what's happened. He said, quote, "We haven't been as patient on offense. People are really backing off, trying to make us throw short. We've got to make sure that we are being patient. To do that, you've got to catch the ball and make yards after, get that yak after." Now, from what we saw, Georgia Tech didn't do that as much. Georgia Tech blitzed and got after Drake May because this UNC O-line is not the strength of their offense. NC State backed up, let their linebackers do work. And it feels like when UNC can't get those explosive plays, that's their lifeblood. That's what they want. That's what they want to do. When they can't get those explosive plays, it's almost like they can't get in rhythm and they don't have as much confidence. Is that what you've seen from UNC?
Yeah, these last couple of games in particularly, it's been fascinating just to see, KG, okay, when something like that is taken away, a la North Carolina State, or if we're trying to heat things up where you don't have time to look deep. You've got to go. You've got to either get out of the pocket or throw short without getting hit, which you got hit a lot against Georgia Tech. Then you've got some problems. And this UNC, offense is drastically different, from what we saw the first 10 games.
Yeah.
But, kind of diving into individual units, and then we'll kind of go big picture, to that last 2 games. What's the biggest difference? And statistically, what does it look like? It starts and finishes with Drake May, to me, KG, with how good he is. Listen to some of these stats. 4th in the country overall passing yards with 3,800, 35 passing touchdowns. That's 4th in the country. His QBR is top 10, and he's number 1 in the world in yards per game, total yards per game. He does it all for these guys. He's their leading rusher with over 600 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns. Clemson cannot just, value him as a passer. They have to understand he can take off and run, and he likes to. He's their leading rusher in yards and attempts with 161 attempts. That's almost double the next guy. And so when you see that, you understand that, okay, it's kind of like that snake mentality. You cut that thing off, the rest of the body dies there. So how can you do that? Because he is the player of the year, because he is that good, and we've seen him play at such a high level. Going to be fascinating to see, how do they attack that? Do they try to spy somebody? Are they going to take the Georgia Tech approach and just light them up, which is what Clemson does? Or are they going to say, hey, let's put more athletes on the field. Let's try to confuse them. Let's try to get the football and maybe force some turnovers there.
And that's what I would do, Mac. Now, I know Clemson.
Wait, which one? Which one? I said 2 things. Which one?
I would take the NC State approach, because I know that Clemson has a D-line that honestly has been hyped up all year and hasn't necessarily performed. When you look at Clemson, they're getting after the quarterback a lot in the last couple of games, but all of the sacks, besides a few from KJ Henry, have come from the linebackers, have come from Trotter and Barrett Carter and Trenton Simpson. You have these freaky linebackers. And I know the secondary has had some question marks, but when you look and you see the Achilles heel against South Carolina, was giving up explosive plays, I would reconsider. I mean, if this was your 2018 D-line, sure, I would rush the heck out of Drake May. But because it's not, and you have those linebackers, which NC State, the main reason why they were able to slow them down was because of their linebacker play. I just feel like explosive plays is, as I said, the lifeblood of this UNC offense. And for Clemson, it's been a big issue. So why not cater your game plan towards that?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, KG, just to see what are they trying to do. And, one thing for sure that they have to do is cover Josh Downs. I mean, Coach Dabo Swinney said it. Everybody knows that this guy gets more targets than anybody in the world per game. He's right at 11. He catches 8 of them. So if you do the quick math on that, if I gave you the total numbers, that comes out to 77% completion rating when Drake is throwing to Josh. It's crazy to see the connection. That's right. To see the connection that those guys have. And to me, when I look at it, Josh is the best receiver Clemson has faced since Zay Flowers. Why is that different? Zay Flowers was the only option. They know, okay, hey, we can give all the attention. We can have a safety over top. We can be physical on the line of scrimmage. We can isolate that problem. He still had a great game against Clemson. But how can we take that away? You don't have the luxury of doing that with this UNC offense. They are very similar to Wake Forest, although I don't think is good holistically. I think Wake Forest still has the best wide receivers in the conference and maybe in the country when it comes from a unit perspective. But they're deep. I mean, Antoine Green has been a guy that absolutely can take the top off of a defense. He's averaging 20 yards per reception. That is crazy to me, the ability that he has there. And then Bryson Nesbitt, he's a guy that is a tight end, kind of that hybrid H-back role where he's just a mismatch problem. He's a big-time threat. He stretches the field. It's not these dink and dump type things. He's a tight end that's going to get in space, KG, and be a really big problem for Clemson.
You bring up Antoine Green. He would be Clemson's leading receiver at 745 yards.
Right.
Josh Downs has 929. Green has 745. Clemson's leading receiver, Antonio Williams, has 523. So either of those guys would be Clemson's leading receiver by a mile. Mac, let's look at Clemson's defense here because I kind of alluded to it. And, they have 12 sacks in the last 3 games. But like I said, besides, I think KJ Henry has 1.5. The rest are from those linebackers. As much as I think that explosive plays is what Clemson needs to focus on, I feel like they're still going to blitz and get after the quarterback because that's Clemson's MO. And we heard Dabo Swinney talking about rush integrity. Could you break down for me what rush integrity is?
Yeah, it's just being disciplined on where you're supposed to go. So I'm actually showing a great tape of this. I'm glad you brought that up on Saturday. So tune in and I'll show you some visuals here. But basically what it means is, okay, if I'm supposed to blitz and I have contain, that means I cannot go inside. I have to stay outside. I have to be disciplined of where I'm going. If I'm blitzing through the B gap, but I see the C or A gap open, I can't take that. I have to go where I'm supposed to be because that's where everyone else around me is. And what I'm going to be showing you guys on Saturday is really the discipline from Barrett Carter when he blitzes. There's a couple of things I'm going to show you. His sole job, he's blitzing, but his sole job is to get on the hip of a guard or tackle and just blow him up. Just hit that guy, allow the defender, whether it's a defensive end or defensive tackle, to wrap around untouched. That's his only job. Now, what happened against Louisville is he could have just it opened. It opened up. He could have went straight. Probably would have got the sack. But he showed the discipline against a mobile quarterback. This is what I have to do. And that then freed up even more Brian Brzee. He was able to get the big sack. Either one of them could have done that. But that's the type of discipline that they're going to have. That's the type of ability where if you try to get them and you miss, and now I've got a defensive lineman and a linebacker running into each other, or maybe now because you're so close, a tight end coming back or a running back coming back can block both of you at the same time because it's just that little hesitation all Drake needs to roll out. So that's where I think, Coach was really hitting the nail on the head there where, hey, look, do what we call. Do the plays that we call. Trust that it'll work, which they have for the most part. And I think that's how they're going to get after him. Drake has been sacked more than any quarterback in the entire league. This offensive line for UNC, they're Swiss cheese. I mean, he's been hit 34 times. He's been hit for a 1-yard gain even more. That's just credit to his ability to make something out of nothing. KG, I think Clemson's blitzing all night. I think they're going to try to absolutely light them up.
And I get that. That's what Clemson does. By the way, that breakdown was great, Mac. Clemson has been susceptible to the big plays. So I would just like to see, and I think Dabo alluded to this, I would like to see, some variety.
Yeah.
Make them think you're blitzing, drop back. See if you can force a turnover, something like that. But these linebackers have been so special and can do both. Right. They can cover and they can blitz. So utilize these linebackers. I mean, the amount of, I think Dabo really talked about to us, he brought up Trotter, he brought up Carter, he brought up Simpson. I think those linebackers are the key to slowing down this offense if you're Clemson. Yeah. And when you look at UNC, Mac, you had a great point here in our rundown. Probably the two best quarterbacks that Clemson's faced this year, Spencer Rattler and Sam Hartman, lit them up. Yeah. So is Drake May capable of doing that as well? Right.
100% he is.
Yes.
And so one point that I wanted to touch on, what you just said there, of showing blitz and then, backing off, retreating. Yeah. That works too, because at the end of the day, like, okay, let's say I have Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter up at the line of scrimmage. As an offensive line, we have to count them. We have to target them. So what does an offensive line do? We start on the inside, and then we count out. So, okay, center, you have this guy. Guard, you have this guy. Well, if there's a 3 technique and a defensive end out here, one of those guys is potentially coming free just because of the mere threat up the middle. Now, if you have a really good offensive line, you can sort and you can bounce back and trade, all these different things. North Carolina has demonstrated they're not great at that. We saw that Georgia Tech game where it was a lot of stunts. It was a lot of games. They were not able to pass those off. Same thing with North Carolina State, with just a 3-man rush and then maybe a fire or a triggering linebacker there. It's going to be a problem. And so the one thing that I will say is, a lot of times you make fun of me sometimes for this. I'm making too much sense. When it makes too much sense, sometimes it does not happen. But I just have to think that, this defense is really going to turn it up. The biggest concern for me is obviously the pass defense of Clemson, as you said, giving up the big plays. They're 9th in the ACC. I would have thought coming into this year they were going to be 9th in the country. But at the biggest question is, will he have time? Is he going to have time to throw the football? So that's where I'm interested to see. Think they're going to really replicate but be better because they have better athletes than Georgia Tech and just try to get after them. That's what I see happening.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's flip it. Let's talk about Clemson's offense and UNC's defense. Let's start with Clemson's offense. I mean, all anybody wants to talk about is the quarterback play and how it has been quite lackluster, which no one's arguing against that. Dabo's not arguing against that. He's just saying it could be a lot better if other players step up and do their job. Yeah. I mentioned that UNC's 2 top leading receivers would both be Clemson's leading receiver. Clemson has not had a single wide receiver with a 100-yard receiving game this season. That is a problem. And their receiver that's been the best guy is Antonio Williams. He only had 2 catches for 11 yards against South Carolina. So you really don't know who's going to step up catching the ball. And that's why, Mac, I know you're a big believer in Ship, and I think someone tweeted this at us, Mac. Ship can only happen if Ship gets the ball. Will Shipley's your best player. He's your playmaker. He's your most reliable player. Get him the ball and be creative with it. Pitch it to him, whatever you need to do. But Shipley needs to have a ton of touches.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think that, at the end of the day, this is a massive opportunity, for Clemson. When you look at this North Carolina defense, and I'm not being mean, I'm not being a homer, I'm just giving you facts. This is the worst defense in the ACC. They give up the most yards at 442 yards per game. How they do that, 270 through the air, 170 on the ground. I mean, that's a ton, KG. Yeah. They're also giving up 30-plus points per game. So for me, I'm not going to call Clemson a struggling offense because I think that's disrespectful, and they've had a relatively good year. But at times, they have struggled, and they've really stalled out. This is the solution. This is where you get all the momentum, is you play a defense like this. It should be Clemson's opportunity to have that perfect game where they are rushing for 200 yards. They do pass for 200 yards because everything opens up in that run game. And as you said, get Will Shipley the ball. Do it a bunch of different ways. Get him 20-plus times, I think, is that sweet spot because he's your best player. Treat him like your best player. Get him the rock. Find ways to do it. Let's not just say, oh, well, nobody else can catch. Will Shipley can catch. Throw him the football. Get him the football. Put him out at slot. Run a slant. I mean, whatever it takes. If there is something where you get in that game and guys aren't doing their job, make him Waldo. Make him everybody worries about where he is because he's that good. And listen to this. He's the first athlete ever. I think I read this right. Someone come at me if I didn't. to be first team at 3 different positions on the same team.
Yep.
Running back, all-purpose, specialist. He's that special. He's that good where you've got to get him involved. You have to get him involved early and often.
Mac, 2 interesting stats about this offense I want to throw out there, this Clemson offense. I'll start with a positive. Clemson has actually been very good in the red zone the last 3 games.
Yeah.
10 for 12, not just scoring touchdowns in the red zone. So when they get in the red zone, good things happen. The problem is if you turn the ball over before you get in the red zone, or as we saw against South Carolina, you lose the field position battle so badly because their punter is having the game of his life, then you're going to struggle. And that's where the flip side here, my biggest concern, and I said it last week before South Carolina, are the turnovers. Clemson has 9 turnovers in the last 3 games.
Wow.
That is a problem. They've lost the margin in all 3 of those. And yes, some of them are interceptions, but the real issue are the fumbles. And if you're going to go out here and fumble the ball against North Carolina, this is a defense, for all of its issues, Mac, has been able to force turnovers this year. Yeah. If you fumble the ball and give Drake May short fields, you're not going to win the game. If Clemson can just take care of the football, ground and pound, which is where they have a huge advantage in this game, and continue what they've been doing in the red zone, they should be fine. But the big but for me are the big but. I'm 12. The big but here are the turnovers for Clemson.
Yeah. Right. And I think another great point that you just kind of mentioned in there is that ground and pound. Sometimes that can be your best defense. Like if you can hold on to the football, if you can limit the possessions by North Carolina, guess what that does? That makes a play caller and a quarterback frustrated because, oh my gosh, we only get these many opportunities. We have to take advantage of it. Then you start forcing things. Then you get into bad situations. So it's going to be very interesting, both sides, to see the attack and see what are they able to do. KG, when I look at it again from a perspective of the quarterback and look at DJU and everybody, I mean it's so funny to look at. I get tagged in these message boards and these comments on Twitter and Facebook.
Never read the message boards, kids.
Yeah, never. It's a dark place, guys. Any team, any player, any mom or dad, don't go to the message boards. But just to see him and the opportunity that he has here to play catch. I mean, at the end of the day, throw the ball. There's not going to be a big pass rush. North Carolina's defense has not been able to establish any type of continuity, any type of consistency rushing the passer. So he should have time. He should be able to process 1, 2, 3. This is where I want to go. Or, my goodness, take off and run and do the things necessary to keep it going. So both offenses, I think, are going to be able to do relatively what they want. North Carolina, if they have time. Clemson, if they can be disciplined and run the football and catch the football. Coach Dabo Swinney, my goodness, catch the football.
Throw it here.
So I'm interested to see just both of attacks. How can they get going? How can they be, kind of the form that they want offensively?
The other thing to note for Clemson's offense is that Bo Collins is out. He tried to play. He had that big play against South Carolina, but he got injured again. He's going to have surgery. Antonio Williams has been your most productive receiver, but Bo Collins, if he had been healthy, would probably be your leading receiver. So that is obviously not great news for Clemson. For UNC on defense, Mac, what can they do? I think you've talked about forcing turnovers and just trying to stay disciplined. But what do you expect to see from this UNC defense?
Well, the good thing is they have 2 really, really good linebackers that just fly around. That when I look at, the first team linebacker there, Cedric Gray, met him back at ACC Media Day, was very impressed with his attitude, with his, kind of thought process when he was answering some of these questions. And, I mean, he's a weapon, and he's delivered. I just pulled up his stats here, 130 tackles. That is nuts. 2 things here. Number 1, obviously, he's a very good linebacker. He's flying around the field making plays. Number 2, he's on the field a lot, which means the defense isn't really doing their job.
True.
But he's doing that. Power Eccles, another linebacker, he's kind of the tone setter. He's the guy that, everybody rallies around. He's a firecracker. He's a smaller guy, but really packs a punch. He's not afraid to come up and hit you. Really reminds me of kind of a Tanner Ingle at linebacker. Tanner Ingle from NC State, kind of that undersized guy that just is so physical. I expect him to go over 100 tackles for the season. Guys that get their hands on the football. Cedric, 2 picks, 5 pass deflected. He has a couple of forced fumbles. It's impressive to see the individual units. Storm Duck, another guy, was all ACC performer, has 3 interceptions. So opportunistic is the correct way to kind of call this defense. And there was this stretch there where they were giving up a ton of yards, but they weren't giving up touchdowns, and they weren't they were getting their hands on the football. They finished the Miami game with a pick. They finished the Duke game with a pick back-to-back. And in these two games where the offense hasn't looked great, defense has only given up very limited points. So it's a unit that is getting better, KG. But I think when you look at the offenses that they played, Georgia Tech, NC State on their fourth-string quarterback, it's just not the same. It's not comparable, to what you're going to see in this offense that when they're clicking feel really good and, of course, have much better talent than others. So, attack-wise, I would test DJ. I really would.
Yeah,
I would load up the box. I would have Cedric and Eccles right there loading up and saying, go ahead, throw it. Let's see. Let's see if you can complete a pass. Let's see if these guys will catch the ball for you. I'm going man-to-man across the board and maybe a one-high safety that can play both sides of the field on a deep shot. That's what I would do. Until proven otherwise, I've seen all season long that has been a struggle in tight windows and when guys are being physical. So that's what I would do. I would not allow Shipley to get 6 yards before he's touched. I'm having people close and on that line of scrimmage.
So I want to ask you the question that probably a lot of Clemson fans are thinking. But first, I have to mention Power Eccles and Storm Duck are two incredible football names. Just want to shout that out. That's amazing.
Big facts.
I also have some spread numbers here, Mac. But first, I think before we do that, we have to at least entertain this question because it's probably what a lot of Clemson fans and honestly UNC fans are thinking. What kind of, I'm going to use a different term because we hate the leash term.
Not the leash.
What kind of hook?
Time frame? Hook. What kind of hook?
Hook. Do you think we see with DJ? Do you think Cade Klubnik plays at all in this game?
Yeah.
I tend to think no, considering DJ struggled so much against South Carolina and you didn't see him.
Right.
It feels like to me that, and I could be so wrong on this, but that they feel like DJ is still their better option, that they just don't feel like Cade is ready. That's the vibe I get. What do you think is going to happen with this QB position?
Yeah, I mean, without having been to a practice since August, without having any type of inside information, and like I said, I've said this before. If I did have it, I wouldn't tell you guys anyway.
Exactly.
But we don't. We don't know. I mean, we just strictly are going off of what we see in games and what we read and what things that are on social media there. And I think that's a fair assessment to think that he's not ready. As Jimmy's blowing his leaves beside me. I'm sorry if you hear that loud.
I was going to say, is that Jim?
Jim's going
Shout out to Jim and the cops.
That's right. Always a star when we're trying to do a podcast episode. But yeah, I think that's a safe, kind of assumption to come up with there, and just thinking, is he ready? Is he not ready? Does he have the ability to go in there and lead a team? Now we've seen it in flashes, and against Georgia Tech at the end of the game, man, it looked really good and it was exciting. We saw against Syracuse, won the game and didn't do anything special, but didn't lose it, and really managed that well. And then Clemson puts him in a really tough situation.
The 2-point conversion throw was special. That was the special thing you saw from him, where you saw a glimpse of, okay, that's a special play. But you're right. Beyond that, they relied on Shipley in the Syracuse game. Right.
And then the Notre Dame, the pick six. And what is unfortunate about it, though, is they're everything that you read kind of in that stretch of those games is we're looking for a spark from Cade. We're looking for him to be the guy, this and that. Well, how about you just look for him to be quarterback? How about you just look for him to go in and, play within the game, not a spark? Because how much pressure does that put on you to, hey, man, we're putting you in here to do something crazy. Like, go. So now I'm forcing things. So now I'm trying to be outside of just who I am. So it's based on the conversation we had with Coach Sweeney. I don't even think it's really a conversation in the things that he said. But for me personally, and from a fan perspective, from an analysis perspective, yeah, you'd like to see somebody else. You'd like to see another guy in there. And how much does that change the team in regards to, okay, if I'm a wide receiver right now, and again, this is all speculative. This is no inside information. If I think my quarterback cannot get to his third read and couldn't throw his third read, am I running that route as hard as I can?
It's just human nature.
Maybe. Am I concentrating and catch that ball when it comes to me? Maybe I've seen that you're not. So for me, it's almost like if there's a guy, and I'm not saying Cade's the guy, we don't know. But if Cade is the guy and he can make those throws, is everybody running harder? Is everybody trying to get open on every single play and you get that separation and guys are locked in so they make the big-time catches? I don't know. It's a fascinating thing. Would I like to see it? Yes. Are we going to? Maybe not. But the future is going to be interesting, for Clemson in the very short term of what's going to happen just this next year. Does DJ come back? Does DJ transfer? Does Cade transfer? What does it look like? It's going to be very intriguing, KG, this offseason from a holistic, the entire ACC. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I think are going to go down where this might be a different looking league when we come into August this coming season.
In all these ACC championship games that Clemson's been in over the last, 7, 8, or 10 years, I'll say back to 2011, I don't think they've ever had the QB disadvantage.
Right.
So they've never had the lesser QB. And I think it's very fair to say Drake May is the best QB in this game. So that's going to be fascinating to watch. Mac, I want to give you some numbers on this spread because we need to make a pick here. Clemson's a 7.5-point favorite. 2 numbers to keep in mind. Both Clemson and North Carolina are 6-6 against the spread this season.
Wow.
So not much there, right? However, this stat very much stood out to me. North Carolina is 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games as an underdog.
Ooh.
So keep that in mind. We've got a 7.5 number here.
Do you know those games by chance? Do you know who they were playing?
Well, they definitely had to have covered in the Notre Dame game, I guess, because that would be one of them.
Maybe, yeah.
And then I don't know who else they were an underdog to this year. So
Wake
I think
Forest.
It goes back to last season.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. I thought that number was interesting.
Okay.
Would you like to go first, sir, or would you like me to go first?
Ladies first, so I can steal your pick. Ladies first.
Okay. This is tough because honestly, my first thought was to go UNC to cover because I don't trust Clemson.
Right.
But when you think about how UNC's played lately, I don't trust UNC either. So it's hard to say I'm going to take them to cover in an ACC title game where none of these guys have been there before, and a lot of these Clemson guys have. Yeah. And you have that pedigree of winning ACC titles. So I do think this game is close. I by no means think it's a blowout, but I can see Clemson, the final score back in 2015 was 45-37. That's an 8-point spread right there. That's a cover. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The hook makes me a little uncomfortable with Clemson, but I think Clemson wins. I think it's close. I think it's a fun game. And so I'll take Clemson minus 7.5, but I don't like the hook.
Are you taking the under or the over? Are you taking the under or over here? 63.5.
63.5. I have to go under.
I do too.
I have to go under. I don't think Clemson's going to score enough, and I think Clemson's going to be able to affect this UNC offense.
I think that's guaranteed money. I mean, there's very few things this year
I agree.
We've said, hey, take that to the house. I think this is one of them. 63.5 is a ton of points, especially when you see a UNC team that has struggled so much recently on offense and a Clemson defense that I think is going to continue that, and a Clemson offense that hasn't been scoring a ton of points. So I think that's easy money there. KG, I'm on the same page with you in not trusting either at times, but I don't trust that offensive line from UNC the most. I think that they are really going to be affected. I think that Clemson is going to schematically show them things that forces them to do something they do not want to do. I think it's going to force them to slide when they don't want to slide. When you have 3 defensive linemen to the left of the center, you have to honor that. You have to send a bunch of guys over there. And so with that in mind, I think they're able to get to Drake. I think they're able to pressure him, confuse him with different blitzes, and ultimately Clemson gets the dub. So I'm taking the Tigers with the points. I think they go on to get their, I don't know what number it is, 1,000,000th ACC championship trophy.
8th?
Is it Dabo? Oh, Dabo.
Well, under Dabo. I don't know what the overall one is.
I don't know. It's in the 20s. I'm not sure. But I think they get it done. And then, we get on to a great bowl season for the ACC, and can't wait to talk about all of that on Monday's episode. So it's going to be a big time, KG.
By the way, I went back and looked. UNC was favored against Notre Dame. So the last underdog.
Because Notre Dame was horrible. Notre Dame was bad going into that.
I think Wake may be the only game that they were an underdog in this year.
Wow.
And they played well and won. So
there you go.
Interesting things to keep in mind there.
Right.
And Mac, I want to add this. I'll say it. We had Dabo Sweeney on Wednesday, so please go listen to that. Both UNC and Clemson fans. He says a lot about Drake May in that episode. Yeah. We wanted to have a UNC representative on. We just weren't able to make it happen, but it wasn't for our lack of trying. So I want to say that because I don't want UNC fans thinking, oh, we just had Dabo on and blah, blah, blah. So
we did try.
Putting that out there.
Carolina fans, we did try. We were told no. I understand. It is what it is. You got to focus on your team.
I get it.
That's right. You got to focus on your team. One guy that is more busy and much more busy than anybody on the entire planet is Richmond Weaver. Shout out to our producer. Does such a great job. We had a little bit of a firestorm in the last episode, and KG and Richmond did their magic and got that taken care of so fast.
The behind-the-scenes. The
behind-the-scenes joy. Shout out to Richmond Weaver. Go check out his podcast, Rich Take on Sports, wherever you get it. So many fun stories around sports and different avenues of life and the ways that we're all connected in this fun sports world. Love that one. Big shout out to Duke's Mayo. We told you guys all about them. Go check out their Southern sauces. I have an array of them right here. You can check them out. Go to dukesmayo.com. Get in that Y'all Star Sweepstakes. There's not only the massive prize at the end, there's also weekly prizes. You got 2 weeks left to win some of those. I think I saw like a jean jacket on there that looked really cool. I don't know if it would fit me, but maybe you, KG. Swag. So you got to get that swag. You got to check them out. But guys, that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Another great episode of Graham and Mac Lane presented by Duke's Mayo. Go get SiriusXM, subscribe. You can hear us in your car, on your phone. Take that app anywhere. But we also need you to go over to YouTube. Mash that subscribe button if you're watching us right now. Really appreciate y'all's feedback. The comments, I love them. Keep coming at us with some fun stuff there. And then, of course, the OGs over on Apple Podcasts. Appreciate you guys. Rate, review, subscribe. Always fun to hear from you guys. But until next time, we'll see y'all.